Hey mi gente, it's Julian Steve. You already know my name, but if you're new here, hey! Today we're going to be talking about Zoe Saldana and why her children are not black. Yes, we're going to have this ridiculous conversation because it's an important conversation, and I believe Zoe needs to hear this message, even though I doubt she's going to watch this video. But whoever needs this message, this video is for you as well. Enjoy. Zoe Saldana's nationality is American. She was born in New Jersey, but raised in Queens, New York. Zoe's ethnicities are Puerto Rican and Dominican. When it comes to Zoe's races, it's not tricky, but to some people it may be tricky. So I'm going to break it down right here. Zoe's mother is a mixture of indigenous and white ancestry, mostly indigenous and white ancestry, which would make her a mestiza.
Was filming. Saldana was 9 when her father died. Her mother, Acelia Nazario, worked sometimes as a hotel housekeeper to raise Zoe and her 2 sisters.
Pray for God to guide them and to make their dreams come true. And Zoe's dreams were very, very big. So I prayed harder for her.
And that's usually a term for people who are a mixture of 2 races, specifically indigenous and white in Latin America. Whereas Zoe's father is a black man. This means that Zoe is mixed race, mixed with black, or the term that is mostly known to most people, biracial. But sadly, in the United States, most people would label Zoe Saldana as black, even though she is half black. But I just want to mention that here so everybody is on the same page. Zoe Saldana is mixed, but she is half black. Zoe Saldana identifying her children as black upsets my tummy. Seriously, it really does. Zoe said in the magazine in 2016 that her children are going to be black men, meaning that her 3 sons are going to be black men. She said this: "There's no one way to be black," she adds. "I'm black the way I know how to be. You have no idea who I am. I am black. I'm raising black men. Don't you ever think you can look at me and address me with such disdain. Sorry, Zoe, but I'm going to look at you and address you with such disdain. You're a mixed with black woman who chose to procreate with a white Italian man. Now your children, your 3 sons, are not black. Logically, that's not how biology and genetics work. Yes, race is a social construct, but we all know how science works. Based on science, your children are not black, and that's okay. My issue is when people like you, Zoe Saldana, who want to purposely try to make their children who are not black to identify as black just because they chose to marry outside of their race, and then they happened to also be mixed race as well, and thinking, since I want to carry on my identity to my children, I have the right to identify my children as black too, or just black, even though I know my husband is a white man, but I am mixed race. According to race in America, or race in general, because it's also like in the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico, your children would never be considered black, not even half black in these countries. Just because your sons have an olive tan similar to yours, but not quite similar, because I can easily tell that these boys are mostly white, that doesn't make them African, aka black. Before any of you try to defend Zoe Saldana, remember, this is the same woman who portrayed Nina Simone in a 2016, I believe, 2016 biography about Nina Simone, to the point that she had the audacity to use blackface and use a prosthetic nose to look similar to Nina Simone. I never saw her as unattractive. Nina looks like half my family, she says. But if you think the prosthetic nose I wore was unattractive, then maybe you need to ask yourself, what do you consider beautiful? Do you consider a thinner nose beautiful, so the wider you get, the more insulted you become? You know why black people were pissed off of you portraying Nina Simone with your prosthetic nose. Circling back to Zoe's half of my family looks like Nina Simone comment, see, you acknowledge that you're half black. You cannot replicate a black woman like Nina Simone. Besides of you being half black, but you're not Nina Simone's complexion, you're not a black American, which I know some people are going to debate about this, but in my opinion, when it comes to historical figures, I feel like people who are not of that background shouldn't be portraying that specific character, in my opinion. Of course, there are nuances with the topic, but I'm not going to talk too much about it. I'm just mentioning it now because it makes sense, because we're talking about Zoe. Besides Zoe not being a black American, she is very dense when it comes to race-related issues, and we're going to talk about that in the next portion of this video. More examples of denseness from Zoe. In 2013, Zoe did an interview on A+ magazine, and she pushed back on the criticism of portraying Nina Simone. The article states, in 2013, when we was asked about the makeup and prosthetics by A+ magazine, Saldana said, "We waste so much time talking about the color of our skin. It's just there. It's beautiful. My composition, I'm everything. I'm so many cultures, so many races. I've reached that place where I don't want to talk about black this and white that, them this and us that." Zoe's talking like a person who's tired of talking about race. To some extent, I understand where she's coming from as a person with different cultures and races. However, you cannot pretend that we do not live in a race society. Sure, you may have your own perspectives, but you cannot pretend that race is not a thing going on this earth. You cannot pretend. Let alone trying to be dense just because you feel like it's always a topic of discussion everywhere you go.
She faced harsh criticism for wearing a prosthetic nose and makeup to darken her skin.
I should have never accepted the part. I am black. Nobody will ever tell me how to be black. But as a person of Afro, Latino, and African heritage, I have to understand just how complex this conversation needs to be in order for me to propel accurate portrayals of women of color.
Example 2. In 2013, Zoe said that people of color do not exist. In The Roots, they state, during an interview with BET, Saldana candidly discussed how she views race, alleging there's no such as people of color. When asked how she racially identifies, Saldana responded, I find it uncomfortable to have to speak about my identity all of the time, when in reality, it's not something that drives me or wakes me up out of bed every day. I didn't grow up in a household where I was categorized by my mother. I was just Zoe, and I could have and be anything that I ever wanted to do. And every human being is the same as you. So to all of a sudden leave your household and have people always ask you, what are you? What are you? Is the most uncomfortable question, and it's literally the most repetitive question. I can't wait to be in a world where people are sized by their soul and how much they can contribute as individuals and not what they look like. When it comes to this, Zoe, I kind of understand where you're coming from. For example, when it comes to my ethnicity, I always have a discussion related to that. A lot of times, does it get annoying? Yes, it does. However, at the end of the day, if people are not familiar with Black people from Honduras, I have to explain to them that my parents are Black people from Honduras, and I happen to be American, but my background stems from Hondurans. I know you're probably relating to also race too because you're mixed. So of course, it's going to be a bit more trickier for you because in comparison to me, people easily know that I'm a Black person. Case closed. Without me trying to cause a discussion, we already know I'm Black. I don't have no issues with that. You cannot live a colorblind life, Zoe. It's impossible. Race issues are everywhere. And you have to remember, your cultures have to do a lot with race as well, and injustices within community. So I get what you're saying, but I do not get what you're saying at the same time. In a 2017 Sway Universe interview, Zoe Saldana had the audacity to say that we should ignore racism and that racism is less important than sexism.
My understanding tells me that it should be. But women sometimes are questioned because it's almost like you're trying to prove our incompetence. You know? So I think that the election that we just went through gave us that. I know that people took a lot of things from this election. I want to learn from everything. There was a realization that I just had in this last election is that America is racist. Of course, there's racism everywhere. I'm not saying that there isn't, but I think that sexism is much stronger and it's much more aggressive. And you know, and I turn on the TV, just read the newspaper. Like all the CEOs are primarily males. Like art is primarily male driven. Like male painters are the ones that are more successful. Primarily, there are women, but the fact that we're just so scarce, is that the word? Is it lets you know that logically there's an imbalance. So, and it has to do with trusting leadership in women.
Zoe, what is wrong with you? This interview is giving edgy anti-Black vibes. Example 4. In 2021, Zoe Saldana was called out for calling out Refinery 29. Apparently, Zoe didn't like the post about Afro-Dominicans, and this is what she said. Keep in mind, she said this on her Instagram stories. You own all Dominicans, regardless if they're Sink, Black, White, or Taino, an apology. On our Independence Day, we do not need to be schooled by others on what we should know about ourselves. Due to Zoe sharing this post with her millions of followers on Instagram, Tatiana Diaz received a bunch of harassment. To defend herself, she wrote a piece titled, "Dear Zoe Saldana, I'm a proud Dominican. I also want to see us address anti-blackness." Tatiana deserves an apology from Zoe Saldana. She did not deserve to be harassed due to her knowledgeable piece, and specifically the post, because it was a post of discussing anti-blackness in the Dominican Republic, while also acknowledging Afro-Dominicans' independence and their roots specifically in the Dominican Republic. Instead of Zoe seeing this as a learning opportunity, she chose to see this as like somebody tried to gatekeep Dominican heritage and tried to only focus on Black Dominicans, but in reality, that wasn't the case. And she just took it as a way to be offended for no reason, while also spreading anti-blackness, if we're going to be honest. And we have to keep in mind that this woman, who Zoe Saldana had the audacity to make her minions, aka her followers, aka her superfans, to attack this woman and her co-workers on their own account. A bunch of people, I don't even know how many, because Zoe Saldana at the time when this all happened, she had around 6 to 7 million followers. That's a lot of people. And who knows how many of these individuals had the audacity to go to harass this woman.
Through interviews earlier on where you were supporting the decision to portray her, it seems that your thinking on this really evolved through the controversy. Yes,
I was being attacked so aggressively, and my instinct was to protect myself. It's very frightening when you're bullied to the extent that I was.
Concluding statements and the outro of this video. Zoe Saldana has anti-Black tendencies and high-key has an identity crisis. Why would you identify your mostly white children as Black? You chose to marry a white Italian man. I get it. Some people were misinformed when it comes to race, ethnicity, and nationality back in the 2010s. But at the same time, you have to be realistic. You married a white man. You're mixed yourself, and you know this too. What does that mean? Your children are not going to be Black. And I'm not trying to be like I know everything, but one thing's for sure, I have common sense. Why would you identify your mostly white children Black? Do you see your white Italian husband? I get it. Some people want to cling to their cultures and their racial identities, and they want to enforce that into their children. However, you chose to procreate with a white man, and that is okay if it is in good faith. I know some people are debating about that as well when it comes to Zoe Saldana. I'm not going to get into that. You should embrace your cultures, but be honest to your children. You're going to put them in an awkward position when people call them out when they order about their identities. Thank you so much if you made it this far in this video. I appreciate you. Tell me, what do you think about the new setup? I feel like I'm a bit more calmer standing up versus sitting down, but you can tell me if you prefer this. If you don't, I'm gonna sit my butt back down, okay? Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I hope people take what I'm saying seriously, because we cannot keep being delusional when it comes to ethnicity, nationality, and race. We cannot keep doing this, especially with children who are going to be the future. We gotta do better when it comes to these discussions, when it comes to ethnicity, nationality, and race. We cannot keep on enforcing ideas to children that are not realistic, that are not reality. Okay, mi gente? Okay, mi gente? Okay. Thank you, and ooh. Peace, mi gente.